It's baffled scholars for 2 millennia. It is a puzzle made of multi-dimensional elements, an enigma with roots that reach back to the dawning of time, perhaps before. Daniel explained part of it. Ezekiel and Isaiah had glimpses into it. John saw it all for the time of the end. That time is now. Join Derek and Sharon Gilbert on a journey that spans the course of history, from Eden to Mount Hermon, from Hermon to Babel, from Babel to Rome, from Rome to the cross, and from there to us. Biblical prophecy is coming true before your eyes, and to understand it, you must discern the times both then and now. It's time to unravel the threads of this all-encompassing prophetic paradox. It's time to unravel Revelation. Welcome to Unraveling Revelation. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Mrs. Derek Gilbert, and welcome to our home. Once again, we work out of a little space that's off of our bedroom, and we love it. Every square foot of our house is taken up with equipment of some kind, including all sorts of lights that we're still trying to... In fact, our lighting setup is different for this episode than it was for the last one, so if it looks a little different, that's why. We're trying to figure it out.
Trying to do it with being as judicious as we can be, as prudent as we can be with the resources that we've been blessed with, and much of that is due to your generosity, for which we are thankful. But yes, this room is small enough that we don't enter the room as much as we put it on to get here to the desk, to kind of move around without knocking over lighting.
It is pretty crowded, but we have a plan to eventually have our own studio on our property, so we'll tell you more about that after we take a break.
Our Build Barn Better program.
Yes. But first, we talked about this golden statue last week that was just unveiled, and we are discussing the idea of the goddess of this world, the spirit that really runs this world, Inanna. But she's a whole lot more than just a deity that does sex and gender fluidity. She also partners with another deity that is running the world economy.
Right. We wrote about him in Giants, Gods, and Dragons. In fact, we wrote about Inanna to an extent in that book as well. But in the section of our book, Giants, Gods, and Dragons, where we dealt with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the rider on the black horse, after studying just a little bit of information we get from Revelation chapter 6, we concluded that the best and the reason for looking for an actual entity for the riders on the horses is because the rider on the pale horse is named,
along with Hades, who follows him. 2 deities are named.
Right.
So the assumption was the first 3 riders must be entities, deities in the fallen world that are essentially running throughout the world, controlling it.
If you want to see the programs that we did on the 4 horsemen, in fact, we have a DVD in our store, 10 programs that deal with the identities of the riders of the white, red, black, and pale horses.
And it's called the 4 Horsemen.
Called the 4 Horsemen. You can find that at our store, but you can also stream it if you're overseas, you don't want to pay shipping or value-added tax. You can stream those videos as well in HD. But the entity on the black horse in Revelation 6 is described as carrying scales, but the word translated scales actually means yoke.
It's zygos.
Right.
Zygos.
And that's what you put on the neck of an ox to get him to pull your plow. And that is what this entity is doing to humanity, and has been doing for 2,000 years, because as we've argued on this program, the seals of Revelation 6 began to open when Jesus arrived at the right hand of the Father, which happened in the 1st century. These entities are riding, but they're kind of on leashes. They're not riding unchecked. They can only go as far as God allows them to go at this point. But this entity was Nabu.
Yes.
The entity called Hermes by the Greeks, or Mercury by the Romans, Nabu of the Babylonians. And Nabu was one of the most important entities, especially by the time you get to the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar, the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Now, Babylon originally was founded around 1794 BC by an Amorite king named Shumu Abum, I believe it was. He was several generations before Hammurabi, who was the one who made Babylon a world power. But 1,000 years later, more than 1,000 years later, when you get to the time of Nabopolassar, the father of Nebuchadnezzar, that's when the Neo-Babylonian Empire emerges.
The Nebo part is Nabu.
Is in honor of Nabu, right? Nabopolassar, Nebuzaradan, Nebuchadnezzar, Nabonidus, all named for Nabu. He was the god of scribes, and this was at a time when the people of Babylonia were not typically literate. So when you had to write a letter, when you had to make out a will, when you drew up a contract for the sale of goods or to buy property, you had to go to one of the scribes who were part of a what would you call them?
I call them a priestly class because
well, that's a good way of doing it,
even
yes.
throughout the rest of history, we have priests who are the ones that are the ones who keep history.
Right.
The keepers of the books. And it's almost a magical thing that you can take my words and you can make scratches and then you can tell me months later what I said.
Right. They protected their little group, and there's a word for it that is escaping me.
Cloister?
Cloister, but perhaps a guild, maybe.
Guild,
would be a good way of putting it. And they served this god Nabu, who not only was the god of scribes, and in a sense, the god of lawyers, because they were the ones who handled all the contracts, but they also were the god who tracked accounts. In fact, they found just a few years ago in Babylon, the ruins of Babylon, a small temple near the Temple of Marduk dedicated to Nabu of accounts. He's the one who tracked the gifts to the temple, to the gods. So you've got essentially this entity, Nabu, later called Hermes or Mercury, who in the Greco-Roman world was the god of merchants. That's where we get the word Mercury.
Yes, it is.
Merchants, mercantile commerce, etc. He tracked essentially the god of bankers and the god of lawyers.
The one that controlled commerce is the one who rules the world. But,
Right.
But you also need, in order to push human beings in a certain direction, you need to give them a carrot. That idea of free love is a big
Right.
carrot to certain people groups. And everybody's free. The irony there is that when we're told you will be free and you can love whomever you wish, you're not told the consequences of that free love. It's not free. And you're also not told that whatever it is you choose to do for the government is actually slavery. So freedom becomes slavery. Sexual rights become sexual requirements. In order to please the god or the goddess, you have to do these things.
Right.
It's not a choice. You have to do it. One of those things is back in the day, and I would say that in some ways we're still doing this. In order to please the god or goddess, you had to actually sacrifice blood, a human being, a child, something near and dear to you.
Right. Well, we talked last week about the Babylonian, Akkadian god Enlil, Sumerian god Enlil, Canaanite god El, and it surprised me when I stumbled onto the research showing that El was Molech, that he was equated with the Ammonite god Milcom, and it's clear from 1 Kings and 2 Kings that Milcom and Molech were one and the same.
Exactly. It all bases on the word that means king. And essentially,
Right.
this is king of the underworld or king of the other world.
Right, who believes that he had a right to rule. He is in the netherworld. Again, I equate him with Shemiyaza, the leader of the rebellion in Genesis 6. And I say and I think we've come to the same conclusion. So I shouldn't be taking this on me like I'm the one who...
But I think you've done most of the research for that. But you stumbled upon another thing that I think was brilliant when you found it. And it's one of those nudge, nudge, wink, wink moments in the banking system.
Oh,
It's been hiding in plain sight, much like a group we're going to tell you about in a few minutes, but hiding in plain sight, and it is essentially a love letter to this deity.
right. Now, bear in mind that this was the entity who tracked ledgers, tracked accounts, was the god of contracts and law and scribes and writing.
Yes.
In 2009, during the height of the subprime mortgage crisis, when everything was melting down, the folks at MasterCard decided to impose a new service charge for merchants. Every time somebody uses a MasterCard debit card or credit card, they pay a 2-cent fee. The merchant does to MasterCard.
Actually, we pay it because the merchant charges us.
Well, the merchant passes it on to us, right? they could have called it anything. They could have called it service charge or internet charge or merchant charge or whatever. They decided to call it the Network Access Brand Usage Fee, the NABU. Mm-hmm. Every time you use a MasterCard, 2 cents goes to NABU.
Now, that doesn't mean that you should stop using your plastic because you think that you're donating or sacrificing something to him. No, that isn't it. But it's the world system that has been building, I think NABU and Inanna working together, whatever you want to call those two entities, this male and female duet, have been singing a song that's getting everybody to follow and dance. Mm-hmm. Now, after the break, we're going to just tease this, but I know we've got plenty of time yet. But after the break, we're going to talk about 10 people you've never heard of.
Ah, yes.
Who may reflect another prophetic group that I think is probably working, whether these humans realize it or not, working with Inanna and Nabu.
Before we get to the break, I think we need to point out, again, a little more evidence that suggests that these two entities are working together. In Greek religion, Hermes and Aphrodite is the Greek name by which this entity was known, or one of them, because he probably is manifested in several of, finger puppets wearing different names. Hermes and Aphrodite had an affair, and they had a child born to them. Mm-hmm. Hermaphroditus, which is still the term today for a person who is born with both sets of reproductive equipment. Mm-hmm. It's a very rare condition, doesn't happen often, but often enough that there is a name for it, and it comes from the relationship between these two entities, Hermes and Aphrodite. Mm-hmm. So this age in which we live, in which we can no longer say with certainty, unless you're a biologist, apparently, according to our newest Supreme Court Justice, you can't say for certainty what a woman is or what a man is. If you're a biologist, which thankfully you are, so I
can tell you.
Yeah. Any 5-year-old can tell you.
I know.
But that's the world in which we live, and that's the influence of these entities who want to deconstruct what God created and called good. Have you not read? From the beginning created he them male and female, not 57 other.
No, and they would reproduce after their kind.
Their own kind,
so this idea of transhumanism is against God's design. It's a return to that Genesis 6 paradigm. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. We talked about how, sadly, there are those who see carrying a child and not wanting to carry it to term is simply taking tissue from your body that has no life. Mm-hmm. It's just a part of you. It's no different. It's being spun as no different than taking your appendix out or a tooth or whatever. Yes, that tissue is based on you, but also on your partner. And it's a life from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the irony behind this idea of free love and no consequences. Our world population is aging dramatically towards a very huge tipping point to where most of the population numbers will be over 50. Mm-hmm. Not that many people who are young to work and take care of us and go to school and learn to be a doctor or a nurse or an engineer or a biologist or whatever. In social media, I'm starting to see posts from Japan and China and Russia and on Twitter advocating for more babies. We need more babies. The most recent was this morning, as we record this, Elon Musk. Mm-hmm.
He's been saying this for a while.
Babies. I think he's got like 10 kids, but they're with different women.
Yeah.
He's advocating
That's not the plan,
No, here's the thing. I think in Elon Musk's mind, it's, look, you men, you can father lots and lots and lots of babies. So get out there and get yourself some women. Even if they're just surrogates that do nothing more than gestate your child, and then you get him or her.
Mm-hmm. But this has been ongoing for some time now. Demographers who are watching this very clearly understand that the lies that we're being told by the likes of the World Economic Forum, and we'll get to them after the break, have convinced us
that we need to stop having children because they're emitting too much carbon, we're ruining the world, when the fact is by the second half of the 21st century, the world population will begin to decline, and because we're aging, demographers who are watching this are concerned that we may not be able to turn that tide around unless we start having a lot more children right now.
Well, exactly. When we're told that we have 8 billion people, that's a theoretical number based on a calculation that just runs constantly.
Right.
If you go to worldometer.com, you will see a spinning number that just keeps counting. That number is invalid because the birth rate has dramatically dropped over the last decade. Dramatically.
And startlingly so over the last year.
Yes. Well, with COVID, there were a lot of older people who died, so that took them out of the equation. I think there are those who were like, well, fine, that takes fewer
resources,
but it's also leading to issues of infertility. So I think we're going to have a lot of problems going forward with the ability to have children.
Right. I agree. I agree. And yet there are those who claim that we need to stop eating protein because we're using too much. They're putting up too much carbon in the air, those dirty cows. But we'll talk about that in a group warning us about all of this and why they're, prophetic significances to who these people are and who they claim to be when Unraveling Revelation continues. Prepare for spiritual war by arming yourself with information. Take advantage of these specials through March that dig deep into the Bible to help you make sense of the chaos around us. First, our Veneration Bundle, our 2 co-authored books plus the travelogue DVDs from our Israel tours. An $85 value, just $45 plus shipping and handling. The Second Coming of Saturn Bundle, featuring my book and the 13-part companion DVD, a $50 value for just $35 plus shipping and handling. The This Is War special offer, featuring the Second Coming of Saturn, 4 DVDs, and 7 hours of audio interviews with Bible scholar Dr. Michael Heiser, a $145 value for just $75 plus shipping and handling. And the Gilbert Fiction Collection, all 8 novels in Sharon's Red Wing Saga series plus my 2 novels, a $200 value for just $140 plus shipping and handling. These offers are available through March only at our online store, gilberthouse.org/store. And again, we thank you for your prayers and support. Welcome back to Unraveling Revelation. I'm Derek Gilbert.
That would make me Sharon Gilbert, and we're so glad you're here with us today. We have a project. We bought this property, 8 years ago. And it has this gigantic, what they call out here, a shop building on it. It's sometimes called a pole barn. It's essentially a really nice concrete pad with a metal building on it. It's got a huge garage door. It's got another door you can walk in. It's got a couple of windows, but it's not insulated.
Right.
And it's not quite watertight. So we've been praying about this for years. Only now has the Lord said, now's the time.
Yeah, and provided the resources to do it. Based on the cost estimates we've gotten from contractors we trust, this will take about $15,000.
Which is very reasonable.
Very reasonable, because the building itself is there. That would be the big expense if we had to do that from the ground up. But praise God, this property came available, and we now have an opportunity to move out of our spare bedrooms and into an office space where we can work their podcast. We can use it as a place to record teachings, perhaps hold Bible studies someday.
Yep, keep our books out there.
Keep our books out there, use that as our shipping office.
Yep.
So we're just asking for your help. The World Economic Forum's motto, Build Back Better. You've heard it from politicians all over the world, from Joe Biden to Pope Francis. We're calling this
Build Barn Better.
And if you are so led, we have a place at the website, gilberthouse.org/donate, where you can contribute. But certainly, if nothing else, we appreciate your prayers in helping us to do this, because we will do this, God willing, but we will not go into debt to do it.
We really don't. We think the Lord wants us to do this with cash. So if you have $1 extra or whatever, if you can help us out, that would be wonderful. gilberthouse.org/donate. And thank you in advance.
Amen. Well, the World Economic Forum, their messaging was echoed at an announcement. Now, this is last week as we're recording this, so this is several weeks ago as you're seeing this, when the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists came out and announced the new time on the Doomsday Clock. They've been announcing the Doomsday Clock since 1947.
A long time.
Yeah. Essentially, it's the amount of time left, relatively speaking, until total nuclear annihilation of the planet.
Yes, it's the doom.
Yes.
Okay, everybody run
Ultimate
because it's
doom.
really scary. But, if they say it's, I don't know, it was 100 seconds up until this new
Right.
setting. Prior to that, it had been, higher than that. So if they're saying, oh, it's 120 seconds, whew, hey, we're fine.
Yeah.
No, anytime it's close to midnight, you have to go, excuse me, but it's no longer 100 seconds.
They moved it to 90 seconds to midnight. According to the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, it's now 11:58:30 on the clock, the Doomsday Clock. But with them at their announcement, this is back on January 24th, there was a group that took part in the official announcement calling themselves the Elders.
The Elders.
The Elders. And we've been paying attention to organizations, globalist organizations, trying to tell us how to live for a long time.
I've been
We've
watching
never heard.
this announcement every year and going to the Atomic Scientists website. This year it was announced by the head of the Elders, and
Right.
suddenly it's all over the place like they've now come forward.
Right. They are now unveiled.
Because they've been around for a while.
They were founded back in 2007. The Elders, the current chair is Mary Robinson, who is a former president of Ireland, the first woman to be elected president of Ireland. The deputy chair, one of the deputy chairs, is Ban Ki-moon, the former UN Secretary General of the United Nations. So these are global people with a global profile.
These are big players, and there are 10 active members of the Elders.
10.
There are 5 emeriti, which means that they're retired, emeriti members, and that includes Jimmy Carter.
Right.
Yes. Well, these 10 active members are essentially to guide us because as elders, they are presenting themselves as sages, the wise, almost like the ancestral spirits.
Right.
Almost like something that Helena Blavatsky would talk about.
Yes, what were they?
The Ascended Masters.
The Ascended Masters, right. Thank you. I was trying to think of
Yes.
that term. I
Yes,
was thinking
the
secret
Ascended
chiefs, which is
Masters.
another term that was used by the occultists of the 19th
Well,
century.
the
The
terms
secret chiefs.
change, but the elders, that's something that resonates with a lot of people groups. So these elders have come forward, and they have these big players, right? They are, according to their website, one of their founding fathers was Nelson Mandela.
Oh, they put it right out here.
No, I know. But the money came from Richard Branson and Peter Gabriel.
Peter Gabriel, the original lead singer of Genesis, solo artist, musician for many years, gifted musician.
Gifted musician.
Again, Richard Branson and Peter Gabriel. Now, if they found an organization and said, okay, we founded this organization that's going to tell you how you should live, it's like, okay, a guy owns an airline and lead singer of Genesis, original.
And
I don't know.
your background, your experience, your education.
But
for
no,
this.
that's why on the website for the Elders, they say our founder was Nelson Mandela. Now, God bless Nelson Mandela. He's gone home to...
He essentially put his name on it. They went to him and asked,
Right.
is it okay? And he said, sure.
Yeah. He passed on in 2013, but he just basically put his name on it. Gabriel and Branson went to Nelson Mandela, said, can we sign you up for this and use your name?
And use your name.
Gain some credibility, some heft, some gravitas, because Nelson Mandela is somebody who has a lot of respect worldwide. He is somebody who's lived a remarkable life. There are people who don't know much about Nelson Mandela, but they know that he was good. And so this organization, if Nelson Mandela founded it, but he didn't found it. It was Richard Branson and Peter Gabriel.
Exactly.
Why are the Elders coming out now?
I wonder that too, because the timing with this and then right on the heels of it, we get this golden statue. It's like the fallen realm are saying, this 90 seconds till midnight is 90 seconds until the clock begins again and the new age, the golden age returns.
Yeah.
It's that Virgil quote.
Yes.
Apollo's return. Yes.
Returns, justice
Saturn's-
returns old Saturn's reign.
Justitia is actually who's returning. It's the goddess Justitia, the goddess represented by the statue. The goddess also, Justitia, represented Inanna. Just like Columba Columbia represents Inanna. And when you see that figure of Columbia with the rays coming out of her, which means divinity, and then she's standing on a ziggurat, for goodness sake.
Yeah. The imagery is obvious when we know what we're looking for. The thing is that most of us in the Western world have been so conditioned to de-supernaturalize the Bible, to read out of it all of these supernatural implications for what the pagans around ancient Israel believed, that when we see these images today, we just think, okay, it's just a lady holding a torch.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's kind of like the Statue of Liberty, which that's fine too. Okay, there's some pagan imagery involved in all of that as well. But these elders, the fact that there are 10, the fact that they claim as emeriti, their previous chairs, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Kofi Annan, another former Secretary General of the United Nations. It's clear that they're trying to convey a certain sense of gravitas. These are very serious people who are telling us that we're 90 seconds away from ultimate annihilation because of, but not only because of, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, also because of pandemics and climate change.
These are primarily politicians.
They are politicians, and they're beating the same drum as the globalists at the World Economic Forum. Be afraid of pandemics. Oh, you're not afraid of pandemics? Okay, we're overheating the planet. Al Gore, rain bombs, oceans boiling.
Nuclear war is coming. That's the drumbeat that's coming from the elders, that's why they set it to 90 seconds, they said. And we're being told again and again the nuclear war is coming, and the World Health Organization has told every country to prepare to stockpile medicines required in case there is a fallout event.
And I think we are closer to that. There is some truth to that. The decision by Germany and the United States to send main battle tanks, and now Ukraine is pushing for fourth-generation fighter jets, which at some point, Russia's going to say, that's it. We might as well just take the war to Eastern Europe.
You and I could talk for an hour about the discussions that have been ongoing just in Ukraine area alone, and how it mirrors not only the Crimean War, but then later on the World War I, which was the extension of the Crimean War. We're repeating history, and if you don't know history, you won't understand that. You won't understand that the very politics that are ongoing right now are the same politics that were playing out during Crimean War and also during World War I. The difference is there was a czar in Russia who actually was called a czar. Now it's Putin, who is effectively a czar. And
bear in mind, the Russian czar, that's just the Russian form of Caesar. But here's the thing, and you keep bringing me back to Psalm 2.
Yes.
And this is what we want to leave on a more positive note, because when we look at these headlines, it can drive us to despair as we see these things unfolding before us.
No.
Why did the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath. This is end times prophecy, and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. That's where all of this leads. Thank you for watching. This is Unraveling Revelation.
Unraveling Revelation is a viewer-supported outreach of Gilbert House Ministries.